Hello and welcome to Healthy Cooking and Shopping for Life. My name is Aleda Gordon and I'm here with Juan Strickland. Today we're going to learn about the art of canning, how to can tomatoes.
Well, I have a huge vegetable garden every summer, and right now I have 36 tomato plants, and I can't pick them fast enough and eat them, so I can them, and it's kind of my sanctuary in the kitchen. One of the things we normally do is we wash the tomatoes.
Okay.
And the first thing you have to do is core out the center.
Okay.
And there's a reason why we have to core the center out.
Okay, why do we do that?
Well, we core the center out so that the tomato then can be placed in a pot of hot boiling water for about 60 seconds.
Oh, okay.
And there's a reason why we do that.
Okay, we kind of blanch it?
Kind of blanch it.
Okay, to remove the skin?
Right, exactly. So imagine the tomato coming out of the hot water.
Okay.
And it's going to go immediately into cold water.
Cold water.
Ice cold water.
Okay.
And
you're going to shock the tomato.
Exactly. Actually, the skin will actually just slide
peel
off.
Okay.
And then you can quarter or halve the tomatoes. And obviously, you're going to go into these canning jars. These are 1 quart canning jars. And you're going to take 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. And there's a reason for that. Can you imagine what the reason is for 2 tablespoons?
Why do we do that?
Well, tomatoes are very acidic, and the lemon juice is used to avoid botulism going forward.
That's right, because we are canning.
Exactly. And then I actually do a half a teaspoon of salt, or one teaspoon of salt. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that as well. Can you imagine what that might be?
No, you can tell me.
Actually, it's just for flavoring. Mm-hmm. Even though people view salt as a preservative, it's really not necessary in the canning process, but the lemon juice is necessary.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So actually what you're saying is that we're really not cooking the tomatoes. We just put them in hot boiling water for a couple seconds.
Right.
And then to the cold bath.
Right.
And then from there the skin just comes off and you put the tomatoes into the jars.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you want to boil the tomatoes for at least 60 seconds. Take them out, goes into the cold water. Mm-hmm. We remove the skin, half a quart of the tomatoes, and we put in the lemon juice or the salt. We pack the tomatoes in. Okay. And at some point, you're going to need to pack the tomatoes down to make sure there are no air bubbles present.
Okay.
All the way to the top.
To the top? Okay.
To the top of the lip here. You don't really need to add water per se.
Oh, okay. Because the tomato already has water.
Tomato has water in it already.
So how many tomatoes do you think will fit in this jar?
Depending on the size of the tomatoes, you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 8 tomatoes.
Okay.
And they're packed in there nice and tight. At some point then, we're going to put the lid on.
So this is here?
Right, exactly. These are canning jar lids that have the seal, rubber seal inside. You want to make sure that the jars are clean and sanitary. You want to make sure that they're warm also.
So we have to warm the jars.
The jars should be warm. You can keep them in warm water or maybe microwave them for a few minutes without the top, of course. But once they're in the jar, you're going to then place them into the canning rack. And this is what it looks like when the tomatoes are in the jars, ready to go into the water. You're going to lift them up, place them into the cannery, and you're going to let this go for about 45 to 55 minutes at a boil.
Oh, okay.
When the time is over, you're going to come back, and you either can take out some of the water and then, with your mittens, remove the rack and let them cool.
Cool, okay.
Right? That's one option. Or some people will actually take these tongs and lift them out.
And lift them out, okay.
Right, one by one.
One by one, okay.
Right, exactly.
So now with this process, how long can the tomatoes remain in the jars?
Okay.
After you have...
I never go beyond a year.
A year, okay.
Okay, so 1 year. And I have canned peaches and items in the past, gone beyond a year, and you can start to see the discoloration occur at the top.
At the top.
Of the jar.
Okay.
So you want to keep it within a year.
Within a year.
Absolutely.
All right,
and actually, these are from last summer's garden.
Oh, okay.
These are my last 2 quart jars. I did about 24 to 30 quarts last summer. These are literally the last 2 from last summer's garden.
Summer. Okay. So let me ask you a question. Now that I learned how to can the tomatoes, and you're ready to use them, what would you use these canned tomatoes for?
Well, my wife and I are good for making tomato sauce for lasagna, spaghetti, you know, maybe some of our Mexican cuisine as well.
Okay.
And you know, I just don't use store-bought tomatoes anymore. Everything's coming from the garden.
Garden now, right.
And I buy very few tomatoes in the off-season just because the taste is so different.
It is. I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Because do you use any type of pesticides in your?
Good question. I don't use any pesticides.
Okay.
I use ladybugs. And I'll put this out in the evening as the sun is setting. That way they won't leave your yard. If you put the ladybugs out in the daylight, they'll go to the neighbor's yard and the neighbor will benefit. So you put them out just as the sun is setting. You mist the plants with water spray, and then they'll stay in the garden. Okay. But no pesticides.
No pesticides. It's all organic.
All organic.
Which is really, really good.
Exactly.
So we know with the tomatoes, they're low in calories.
Right.
They have fiber.
Yep.
We know they have potassium. They have a little bit of vitamin A also.
Lycopene is
and
great.
lycopene, right, the phytonutrient. So we know that it's very, it's hard to find good tasting tomatoes nowadays.
Right.
So growing your own tomatoes in your garden at home with no kind of pesticides, being organic, is healthier for us.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times tomatoes, the store-bought tomatoes, they have to be picked early.
Right.
So they ripen in transit and they don't have a good taste.
Yeah, good point. By the time I'm picking tomatoes from the garden, they're very ripe. And I would say about every other day, I'm picking just a huge batch of tomatoes, and I'll be canning every weekend, in a few weeks, when those tomatoes start turning nice and red and ripe.
Okay, so now let's review. First thing we do, we have to core the tomatoes. We'll find the best healthy tomatoes.
That's right.
Right, ripened tomatoes.
That's right.
First, then we core it.
Then you core it.
To take out the center.
Exactly.
Then we're gonna put it in hot water for 60 seconds.
That's right, 60 seconds.
Remove it.
Then we remove it.
And take it and put it in a cold bath.
Cold bath.
Okay, for another 60 seconds.
Yep.
And the purpose of that is to remove the skin.
Exactly, skin will slide right off.
Right off. Okay, once we do that, then we chop it up and put it in the jars.
Exactly.
And we pack the jars,
That's right?
And once it's all full and packed, we cover it.
Yes.
And put it in the basket.
Yep, gonna put them in the canning
rack. And then?
And of course the water's already in here, maybe about this high.
Okay.
And by the time the 6 quarts go in, sometimes I just do 2 or 3 quarts.
Okay.
The water level will rise up. You want to put the top on and let it boil.
Let it boil.
And cook for about 45 to 55 minutes.
Okay.
And then upon that being done, we are going to remove them and let them just cool on the cooling rack. And something that I want to mention that is really important. I don't know if you can see this here, but these tops have an indentation. And as these are cooling, the way to know that these are really sealed is you actually hear the tops popping.
Oh, really?
You hear pop, pop. Or sometimes you may not hear a pop, but you'll see that indentation.
Listen, okay. Okay, I see.
Okay? And that tells you that it's really sealed.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And the only 2 ingredients you need to add to that is lemon and salt.
And salt is optional.
Oh, it's optional.
That's optional.
Can you add other ingredients to the tomatoes if you want to?
I have not done so.
Okay.
And all the studies, that I've looked at focus strictly on these 2 items.
And that's it. Okay. Okay, great.
Exactly right.
Okay, great. Well, we showed you in a simple way how to can tomatoes. I hope you try them because it's very simple and easy to do.